Hey everyone, Mr. Bill here. I am actually in the basement of my house in the dark, and I'll explain that in a little bit. But this is day 6, uh, Good Friday, as it's referred to oftentimes in the life of Jesus' last week of his life. And Good Friday for us was Rough Friday for Jesus. And so I want to read to you today from Matthew chapter 27, verses 1 to 61. Early in the morning, all the chief priests and the elders of the people came to the decision to put Jesus to death. They bound him, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate, the governor. When Judas, who had betrayed him, saw Jesus was condemned, he was seized with remorse and returned the 30 silver coins to the chief priests and the elders. "I have sinned," he said, "for I have betrayed innocent blood." "What is this to us?" they replied. "That's your responsibility." So Jesus threw the money into the temple and left. Then he went away and he hanged himself. The chief priest picked up the coins and said, "It is against our law to put this into the treasury, since it is blood money." So they decided to use the money to buy potter's field for a burial place for foreigners. That is why it has been called the Field of Blood to this day. Then what was spoken by Jeremiah the prophet was fulfilled. They took 30 silver coins, the price set on him by the people of Israel, and they used them to buy a potter's field, as the Lord commanded me. Meanwhile, Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "Yes, it is as you say," Jesus replied. When he was accused by the chief priests and the elders, he gave no answer. Then Pilate asked him, "Do you hear the testimony they are bringing against you?" But Jesus made no reply, not even a single charge, to the great amazement of the governor. Now it was the governor's custom at the feast to release a prisoner chosen by the crowd. At that time, they had a notorious prisoner called Barabbas. So when the crowd had gathered, Pilate asked them, "Which one do you want me to release to you, Barabbas or Jesus, who is called the Christ?" For he knew it was out of envy that they had handed Jesus over to him. While Pilate was sitting on the judge's seat, his wife sent him a message. "Don't have anything to do with this innocent man, for I have suffered a great deal today in a dream because of him." But the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas and to have Jesus executed. "Which of the two do you want me to release to you?" asked the governor. "Barabbas," they answered. "What shall I do then with Jesus, who is called the Christ?" Pilate asked. They all answered, "Crucify him." "Why? What crime has he committed?" asked Pilate. But they shouted all the louder, "Crucify him." When Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere, but instead that an uproar was starting, he took water and washed his hands in front of the crowd. "I am innocent of this man's blood," he said. "It is your responsibility." All the people answered, "Let his blood be on our children." Then he released Barabbas to them, but he had Jesus flogged and handed him over to be crucified. Then the governor's soldiers took Jesus to the praetorium and gathered the whole company of soldiers around him. They stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him, and then twisted together a crown of thorns and set it on his head. They put a staff in his right hand and knelt in front of him and mocked him. "Hail, King of the Jews," they said. They spit on him and took the staff and struck him on the head again and again. After they had mocked him, they took off the robe and put on his own clothes. Then they led him away to crucify him. As they were going out, they met a man from Cyrene named Simon, and they forced him to carry the cross. They came to a place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. They offered Jesus wine to drink mixed with gall, but after tasting it, he refused to drink it. When they had crucified him, they divided up his clothes by casting lots, and sitting down, they kept watch over him there. Above his head, they placed the written charge against him: "This is Jesus, King of the Jews." 2 robbers were crucified with him, one on his right and one on his left. Those who passed by hurled insults at him, shaking their heads and saying, "You who are going to destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself. Come down from the cross if you are the Son of God." In the same way, the chief priests and the teachers of the law and the elders mocked him. He saved others, they said, but he can't save himself. He's the King of Israel. Let him come down from the cross and we will believe in him. He trusts in God. Let God rescue him now if he wants him. For he said, I am the Son of God. In the same way, the robbers who were crucified with him also heaped insults on him. From the 6th hour until the 9th hour, darkness came over the land. About the 9th hour, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? When some of those standing there heard this, they said, he's calling Elijah. Immediately, one of them ran and got a sponge. He filled it with wine vinegar, put it on a stick, and offered it to Jesus to drink. The rest said, now leave him alone. Let's see if Elijah comes to save him. And when Jesus had cried out again in a loud voice, he gave up his spirit. At that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth shook and the rocks split. The tombs broke open and bodies of many holy people who had died were raised to life. They came out of the tombs, and after Jesus' resurrection, they went into the holy city and appeared to many people. When the centurion and those who were guarding Jesus saw the earthquake and all that had happened, they were terrified and exclaimed, surely he was the Son of God. Many women were there watching from a distance. They had followed Jesus from Galilee to care for his needs. Among them were Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James and Joseph, and mother of Zebedee's sons. As evening approached, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who himself had been a disciple of Jesus. Going to Pilate, he asked for Jesus' body, and Pilate ordered that it be given to him. Joseph took the body and wrapped it in clean linen cloth and placed it in his own tomb that he had cut out of the rock. He rolled a big stone in front of the entrance of the tomb and went away. Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were sitting there opposite the tomb. This was a crucial day for Jesus. Excuse me here. Good Friday was without question the roughest, most treacherous, and painful day that Jesus faced during these final hours before his death. So much is happening on this day. Judas felt bad, not repented, but bad, and he hanged himself Friday morning. Before the 3rd hour, 9 a.m., Jesus endured all these false accusations throughout the night, and condemnation and mockery. Did you hear the mocking that they did to Jesus? Beatings, abandonment. And after multiple illegal trials through the middle of the night, he was sentenced to death by crucifixion, the most horrible and disgraceful way to kill a person. I don't even have words to describe what went on next. Jesus was led away by the soldiers. They spit on him. They tormented him. They mocked him. They pierced him with a crown of thorns. They made him carry his own cross to Calvary until he got so worn out that they had somebody else carry it. And he was mocked again there by Roman soldiers who hammered nails through his hands and feet onto this wooden cross. And it says there, from the 6th hour to the 9th hour, darkness covered the land. As Jesus hung and suffered on the cross, he asked his daddy in heaven, can you believe this, to forgive them. He told a criminal that they'd be with him in paradise together. He told his mother and John that they were now family. John was to take care of her. He felt like God had ditched him. He was thirsty. And finally he said those 3 so important words, it is finished. He committed again, that was at the 9th hour. And at that very time, he committed his spirit into God's hand. And at that very moment, the curtain in the temple was torn in two. The earth shook. Rocks split. Zombies came out. All of this to supernaturally mark an undeniable event that Jesus had died. By 6 p.m. on Good Friday, we see Nicodemus and Joseph of Arimathea taking Jesus' body down from the cross and putting it in a tomb. So what do we do this is the so what part. So what do we do with what Jesus did for us? I just have some so what's here for all of us, myself included. Being treated wrongly, unfairly, and unjustly absolutely stinks. Every bone in my body wants to speak up and prove myself right. And there were certain times for that. What amazes me about Jesus was he considered my life and yours worth more than being right. He had a much higher focus. Even the Apostle Paul wrote, "Why not rather be wronged? Why not rather be cheated?" So when it comes to my debt of sin being paid in full, there are no greater words than "it is finished." Man, the payment Jesus made on the cross by giving his life for my sin, for your sin, is enough. It's all we have to do. Nothing more is needed. Jesus plus obeying his commands is not free grace. Jesus plus giving my 10% to the church is not free grace. Jesus plus anything is not free grace. All it takes is simple, childlike faith in the person and work of Jesus. Grace is free and both scandalous and awesome. Man, I encourage you, if you've never done that, receive it today and your life will never be the same. Finally, I would ask you to ask God to help you to personalize this experience, okay, of this weekend. I don't know how to always do that, but here's some ideas and thoughts. Attend a Good Friday service at your church. Show up on Easter at a church that teaches the Bible, okay? Spend time going over with your family this story, okay? The ultimate sacrifice of Jesus that he joyfully made. Spend time going over that with your family. And I'll just leave you with this example. The Bible says that on the first Good Friday, that from the 6th hour to the 9th hour, while Jesus hung on the cross, darkness covered the land. When our kids were little, every Good Friday, we would sit in the dark, usually in a basement or a room where we covered up the windows, and we would have lunch. We would have lunch in the dark on Good Friday. And we would talk about what must have been going through Jesus' mind at that time. What was he experiencing on the cross? And then when it came to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, where it says that Jesus died and he gave up his spirit, what we would do is my kids had this little pop-up tent, and we would take a teddy bear and we would wrap him in toilet paper. And we would put him in the tent at 3 o'clock. And then we had a big cardboard, just a part of a box that we would put in front of the tent as a door, as a stone. That was our tomb. And throughout the weekend, Drew and Jessica would come by on Saturday and go, "Yeah, Jesus is still in there." But what it did was it made it real for my kids, for me. It made it real for me. And whatever it takes, I pray that you will do whatever it makes real for you to experience and have an experience of God that'll change you forever, because it matters. God bless you on this Good Friday. We'll come back tomorrow and talk about what Saturday was like.